Hello, and welcome to this roundup of books that have the marriage of convenience trope in historical romance. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. So, what is marriage of convenience? Well, basically, two people agree to get married in a mutually beneficial arrangement. It's usually for financial security, protection, property exchange, or some sort of caretaking of dependents. The marriage usually occurs pretty early in the plot, within like the first third, and emotional entanglement is not part of the agreement, so it comes as a shock and surprise to everyone involved. The characters usually deny their feelings or hide their feelings, thinking that their spouse doesn't reciprocate. Someone to Wed by Mary Balog is book three of the Westcott series. The ever dutiful and honorable Alexander Westcott is not happy with being the Earl, just when he's recently made his own estate profitable. He's trying to look for a wife, but he inherits a rundown estate instead and doesn't have any of the money. He now has to change course and look for a wealthy wife to support his new estate. Wren is out of mourning for her aunt and uncle who raised her and has been living a reclusive life. She's now looking for a husband too because she wants to combat some of the loneliness. She thinks that the birthmark on her face will prevent any eligible gentleman from marrying her, so she approaches her offer as a business proposal. She's offering Alex the money to fix his estate in exchange for marriage. Alex, of course, is much too noble to just take the money, so he tries to get to know Ren and see if they'll suit. Her demeanor is guarded and severe, and Alex doesn't think it'll work out. She's also a recluse and has trouble meeting people in social situations. It's a total mismatch. However, Alex cannot seem to stop thinking about her, and she somehow feels challenged by him and his family to confront her fears, and she slowly ventures out into society. This one's actually a really nice slow burn romance, even though it starts off as an arrangement. Tall, Duke, and Scandalous by Amy Rose Bennett is book three of the Byronic Book Club series. Jane gets caught trying to steal a rare book from a duke's library, but instead of getting into trouble, he proposes marriage to her instead. Christopher is the newly inherited duke with a reputation for throwing debaucherous parties, but really he's just hiding the fact that an assassination attempt has left him unable to recognize or remember faces of the people around him. He needs help navigating everyone around him and try to find his killer. Jane has her own burdens with a scarred face after an accident with her ex-fiance 10 years ago. She's got a gambling mother. Now she has a blackmailer. So she takes Christopher up on his offer mostly because she needs the money. Also, she's attracted to him. Both people are pretty slow to trust the other one, especially because they've been burned in the past, but the physical affection starts early and often. I did like seeing them team up together against his mystery murderer. How to Love a Duke in 10 Days by Kerrigan Byrne is book one of the Devil You Know series. Alexandra is on her way to a Duke's masquerade ball where her friend is supposed to be announced as his fiance. But what follows is a series of near death experiences, blackmail, and family destitution that pulls Alexandra towards her friend's intended Pierce. Luckily, her friend isn't actually in love with the Duke, so it's not really a big deal that Alexandra is drawn to him. But when Alexandra finds out about the allowance that the future Duchess will receive, she proposes that the Duke marry her instead of her friend. We have actually a lot more drama with Pierce's backstory, with his family history. He was once attacked and scarred. He was ditched by a former fiance, and he's generally distrustful of all women. Alex also has some issues in her past that cause her to be distrustful of men. They have lots of miscommunication, but somehow inherently they feel safe and protected when they're together. So it was nice to see them slowly start to melt towards each other. One Season with the Duke by Addie Dulac is a standalone novel. We have Hetty, the niece of a marquess, who is suddenly being blackmailed by her slimy cousin into marriage. She doesn't like him at all, but seems to go along with it because she doesn't want to jeopardize her family's reputation. Meanwhile, her childhood friend Finn is back in London after having been away for many years taking care of his estates in Scotland. He's disappointed to learn that Hetty is already engaged, but offers to rescue her from her dire circumstances. These two elope pretty early on in the book, and I was kind of expecting a road trip romance, but that didn't quite happen. We ended up with an overbearing mother-in-law type of story instead. Hetty's still keeping secrets of what she was being blackmailed with, and Finn is both arrogant and self-doubting and insecure. The childhood friends to lovers romance here was nice, and I did like how Hetty eventually stood up to her mother-in-law. To Marry an Heiress by Lorraine Heath is book 2 of the Daughters of Fortune series. We're in England for the story where with Georgina visiting her friend Lauren for the season and her wealthy father setting up a match for her with Devon, another earl who happens to need the money. Devon's impoverished estate needs the cash, and he agrees to Georgina's father's terms for the courtship and appearance of a love match. Upon meeting Georgina at a ball, she sees right through him and immediately insists that he not lie to her if they're going to get married. We see a quick wedding very early on in the book, followed by a surprising tragedy that sets off resentment and animosity between Devon and Georgina through the rest of the book. It was interesting to see how Georgina could be both sweet and accommodating, but then also have strength in her convictions throughout the book. Devon thought he would be getting himself a demure and grateful wife, but instead finds a strong, courageous partner worth falling in love with. The Lady's Disgrace by Callie Hutton is book 3 of the Marriage Mart Mayhem series. A duke's sister, Abigail, has just been jilted by her fiancé, who eloped with another woman. With her reputation in peril, her brother arranges for a family friend, the country rector Joseph, to marry her. Abigail and Joseph agree to a marriage of convenience and a friendly partnership because Abigail is unwilling to put her emotions at risk again. Joseph has admired Abigail for years, but didn't think he had a chance with her due to the differences in their social standing. So he hesitantly agrees to the arrangement, but plans to slowly woo her into a true marriage. If the general angst isn't enough drama for you, there's also a conniving widow in the village who is upset that Joseph has come home with a wife. So we have a bunch of random life-threatening accidents that Abigail keeps having. This poor woman nearly dies so many times in this book. I'm pretty sure the audience is meant to know who the villain is here, but it does take a little bit longer for Abigail and Joseph to figure it all out. The Surprise Heir by Mary Farmer is book 3 of the Secrets of Nedworth Hall series. Frank is a mere valet to an earl who happens to be his cousin and at a house party at Nedworth Hall. As someone born illegitimate and without knowing who his father is, he's relegated to being a servant and definitely not a prospect for any of the matchmaking that's happening at this party. Meanwhile, Melanie is an American heiress who's not interested in marrying the aristocracy, and she would rather use her dowry money to open a department store in London. When she and Frank run into each other, she decides that she should marry Frank to release her funds, and then she'll have a built-in business partner with her new husband. Luckily, these two are very much attracted to each other, and the marriage will definitely be physical in addition to being convenient. In Scandal They Wed by Sophie Jordan is book 2 of the Penwich School for Virtuous Girls series. The prologue starts with Evie's younger sister, Linny, giving birth to an illegitimate child and Evie's stepmother wanting to send the baby away. Evie convinces her father to let her raise the baby as her own to save her sister's reputation. We time jump a few years later and find out that Linny's suitor was a soldier who was sent to war before they could get married. As he's dying in battle, he asks his cousin Spencer to take care of Linny and the child. When we catch up to Evie in her impoverished living situation, the reader finds out that her sister had gotten married to someone else and passed away in the intervening years. Spencer does eventually show up at Evie's cottage and believes her to be the Linny that his cousin had pined over for all these years. Since Evie doesn't want to lose custody of her son, she lies and says that she is Linny. It's a tangled mess. Everyone feels guilty for being attracted to someone they shouldn't, eventually ending up with a marriage between Evie and Spencer for the benefit of the child, and so that Spencer can fulfill his duties to his new title. There's lots of potential for betrayal here, with Evie lying about being a mother and Spencer not being forthcoming about him being a Viscount. Definitely keeps the pages turning, just so you'll find out what calamity happens next. The Duke's Daring Bride by Caroline Lee is book 4 of the Surprise Dukes series. Alistair is a reclusive duke who doesn't speak but makes his case in the House of Lords through letters and support documents. At night, he stalks the streets, fighting crime as the Dark Knight. One night, he saves Olivia from ruin while she's out there looking for a story that might save her newspaper. One of her investors just happens to be Alistair, and she shows up at his house the next day to ask him to reinstate his financial support of her business, not knowing that he was the one who saved her at night. He decides to propose to her in exchange for the newspaper support, mostly because he needs a wife and he doesn't want to go out into society to acquire one. These two enter into a marriage of convenience but have an instant attraction to each other. It's fun to read about Olivia integrating into Alistair's boisterous family. He has a meddling mother, he has 2 quirky younger sisters, and then we also get to see a slow progression of Alistair and Olivia learning to trust each other and fall in love. How the Wallflower Was Won by Eva Lee is book 2 of the Last Chance Scoundrels series. At the start of this book, Finn is trying to set up his friend Dom with the blue stocking Tabitha, thinking that they would make for an easy marriage of convenience. However, Dom is not interested in courting or marrying Tabitha, and Tabitha is completely intimidated by Dom. Plus, Finn and Tabitha are clearly drawn to each other. The problem here is that Tabitha is a well-read, intellectual lady trying to gain entry into a prestigious academic society, while Finn has always been berated and thought to be an imbecile. He's not, he just has trouble reading, but he's clever and observant. Finn thinks that he's no match for Tabitha and is afraid she will despise him once she finds out the truth about his intellect. Tabitha is also skeptical of emotional entanglements, mostly because of an experience in her past, but she's slowly opening up to Finn. These two are deeply guarded with their feelings and each other, but it's plain to everyone else that they adore each other, and I really liked how supportive Finn was of Tabitha and her academic goals. The Work of Art by Mimi Matthews is book 1 of the Somerset Stories series. We have a strikingly beautiful and kind young lady, Phillida, who is living with her uncle and cousins after her grandfather has passed away. Now she is being prepared for her debut and season. However, her uncle has almost sold her to a much older and cruel duke who is known for collecting rare and beautiful things. She finds kindness and connection with another man, Arthur, who is an injured war veteran. When it seems that her marriage to the Duke is imminent, she runs away into a marriage of convenience with Arthur, and he takes her to his estate for protection. In this book, I appreciated the slow build of friendship and trust and companionship between Phillida and Arthur, and that they were able to talk through their issues for the most part. Even with the external drama of meddlesome family members, the romance here was really solid. To Marry and to Meddle by Martha Waters is book 3 of the Regency Vows series. We see the romance between Emily and Julian here in a marriage of convenience. We start at the end of a house party where Julian has been kind of sort of courting Emily and hinting that he would be able to save her family's debt as her husband. We start with a proposal right in chapter 1, and we learn Julian's motivations for getting married. He wants to improve the reputation of his scandalous theater to gain the approval of his estranged father. Emily is finally enjoying a bit of freedom away from her overbearing parents and learning to express her own opinions instead of always being so prim and proper. The romance between these two was easy and fun to read. We have an interfering kitten adding to the comedy factor, and this one was probably my favorite of the Regency Vows series. Hopefully you found a book or two to add to your TBR. Thanks so much for watching this video. Links to all of these books are below. Like and subscribe to get updates, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.